We appreciate you guys taking time to see what we have coming out to the market. Both Claire and I are very excited and have worked so hard she's worked harder than me to put the system together, but I've worked just as much with her. We are both behind the commercial accounting program that will be coming out. Before we get started, I'm just going to take a few minutes to talk about Revolution Payroll. For those of you that are new to Revolution, we are an entertainment payroll on record payroll service. And we've been around for almost close to 6 years. Claire and I, if you don't mind, Claire, going to the next slide. I oversee the the sales division of commercials, features, TV, movie, anything that you are working within the industry, we can partner with you. So feel free to reach out to us. Claire is a VP of product management. I want to say she oversees a lot of stuff as well, but she has been single-handedly the instrument of coming out with this particular programs. And again, we're both very excited. In addition to this program, Claire, if you don't mind going to the next slide, we have 6 other products that can complement and make your life easy as you guys are busy doing other things within the production world. I'm going to kick it off by talking to you guys briefly about ProHire. We do have webinars on this program as well, so take advantage of it. It is our start and time card program in one platform, and obviously they speak to each other. It can accommodate union, non-union projects, all types of projects. It's not specific to any specific industry. It does it all, and it's very easy to use. ProBooks, which is our it's a cloud-based accounting program that is tailored for the production, TV, and movie world. TrueBudget, it is an AICP chart of accounts bidding and actualization program that is tailored for the commercials and music video industry. And it speaks to ProHire, the first program that I spoke to you guys earlier on. It helps you actualize your budgets. ProCal is our web-based calendar program. And SetKeeper is our production office software that's mostly used for watermarking and securely sharing documents amongst your team. ProAnalytics, last but not least, it actually came to fruition when ACA came out to the industry. We built a data feed with all the payroll companies. So if you happen to be using different payroll companies for different projects, but you would like to run one report off of one central location, ProAnalytics is your go-to. You don't have to use us for payroll. And we do have the data feed set up with almost all payroll companies. And the payroll data goes into this particular program on a daily basis. So if you want to find out how many PAs you paid out in 2022, you can just do it with one click of a button. It's a very powerful program. We do have offices. Claire, next. We do have offices around the world. We do our next biggest office, in addition to California, is New York. The other offices, such as Georgia, is strategically placed for tax incentive purposes. Canada, we are slowly doing payroll in Canada, but in 2024, we are in full speed. France and India. And the previous slide that Claire zoomed through, that's actually going to be the one that she's going to be showing you all shortly. If you have any questions, this particular Zoom is being recorded. So if you'd like to grab a copy of it, just let us know. Feel free to reach out to us. I will send a follow-up email after Claire does her spiel, just so you guys can have both of our contacts. I'm going to go on mute. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat. I will read it off to Claire at the end, so she doesn't get interrupted. Go, Claire.
Okay, go. All right, I'm going to stop sharing this and start sharing our system. So this is our sort of commercial accounting solution. It is web-based, cloud-based, so it's all done in a browser. So I'm actually already logged in here. I'm just trying to figure out how to move my Zoom stuff. Okay, sorry. There we go. And I'm just showing us our projects list to start. Since this is targeted for companies that are running multiple projects at once, I kind of like to start all of our presentations here on the projects list. We have a lot of values that we can store in our projects, such as directors, executive producers, things like that. That helps us with reporting later. So if you need to report on a particular EP or something like that, we do have the ability to fill that in at the project setup phase and then run reports on that later. So I did create a project already, our project 9, that I'm going to work with kind of today as we go through the system. One of the nice things about having the ability to do multiple projects at once is that we have the ability to either have a unique chart of account for each project or be able to copy them from previous projects. So if you are a company that always uses a brand new chart of accounts for every single project, we can accommodate that here. And if you guys use similar COAs or have kind of similar lines of business, we can accommodate that as well by allowing you to copy your chart from a previous project within our application. So I've done that here. I've also imported a budget already, and I'm going to show you what that process looks like. So from here, we can import a budget or a producer's actual. As I said, I did a little bit of prep before we started, just so we weren't doing too many of the same things over and over again. The way that I'm sort of looking at this is we're coming in just as the job has wrapped. So just as your commercial is wrapped, your freelance team's turned everything over to you. You have some costs entered already, and you're going to import that producer's actual now to try to get as much of the information out of that file as you can. One of the things that we've done here is we allow you to import your purchase order log and your petty cash log from that producer's actual file. What that means is it will create transactions for you. None of them are going to be posted. They're all going to be in a status that we have called draft. And what that means is, I have to move this again. Okay, what that means is they will not be accidentally posted. So we have a field draft, and the way that works is it's kind of like a pre-unposted. So I'm going to select to drag and drop my true budget file here and click to submit. And that's going to import all of those producer's actual amounts as well as the PO log and the PC log. The first thing that happens is that we get our unassigned amounts pop up. These are line numbers in your budget that don't have accounts attached to them. So your top sheet items, any of your fringes. And what I can actually do here is start typing and actually assign the accounts that I want for those particular line numbers. So I can do some of them, I can do all of them, I can do none of them. It kind of depends on how you're working right now. So if, for example, I had a particular line that I didn't have an account for yet, I could skip it and create that and come back and add it in later. So I'll just do these ones for right now. I'll click to apply, and those amounts will then be added to the producer actual values that I had already imported. So the next thing I want to do is show you guys what happens with those logs that I imported. So I'm going to come into my APs list, and you can see I have these draft transactions here at the top. Those are all transactions that were created from that purchase order log. We have it so it automatically creates AP transactions because we find that's what most people are doing with those purchase orders. They either are already existing AP transactions or they're AP transactions that now need to be recorded and paid out. So I'll click to open one of those. You can see I've got my PO reference coming from that purchase order log. I've got my project and my account number, as well as a description from that PO log. So the only thing that's currently missing right now is an invoice number, just because that's not something that we have recorded on our purchase order logs at this time. So that is something that needs to be manually added. So I'll just go ahead and add in a invoice number and click to save. Now that that transaction is complete, we've come out of that draft status and we're now open, which is unposted. The way that we have our batches, our transactions, they're pretty flexible. So all transactions are assigned a batch, but you don't have to post within that batch if you don't want to. So we can post individual transactions at once. I can click to post the transaction from here. If my workflow shows I do use batches, I can come in and I can either do batch posting through the programs or down here through audit and post. And I'll just pop over here real quick to show you what that looks like. So I've got a few transactions over here in my default batch, or I can actually come to my view all grid and select multiple transactions and click the post open transactions from my drop down here. So it just kind of depends on your workflow. We do accommodate multiple ways of working through that. This particular transaction that was imported doesn't have a vendor associated with it because the vendor that was on the PO log didn't match an existing vendor in our system. So I can always come in here and create a new vendor on the fly if I want, or if I have, you know, a vendor that, or a PO log item that was like maybe if it's a travel thing, this is a location piece, so it's a little bit different, but say it's a travel, my production coordinator has added the person who traveled's name in that vendor, just so as a reference for them, but that name, of course, isn't in our vendor record. The first time we import it, it won't import because it won't know that, but one of the enhancements that we have coming is a vendor alias. So what that would do would be to help you then be able to say next time you imported a vendor that started Aspen Travel dash, you know, location fees for whatever project, the system would know that you wanted that to be Aspen Travel. So that's something we have upcoming. And I'll take actually a minute now to talk about that for a second, which is we are still working on this system. We are continuing to make improvements. And prior to launch, we're trying to get a lot in. And then once we're launched, we'll continue to make improvements as we see need from the customers, as well as just things that we would like to do that will be good for the product in general. So know that those are things that will be, that there are things that I will talk about today that are upcoming, as well as requests from clients or potential clients we've pulled in already too. And we'll look at some of those today as well. So I'll just click to save this now that I have a vendor and an invoice number. And I'll come back to this grid and just post 2 of those transactions that we created as part of the PO log import. And next I want to go and look at the project cost worksheet. So this is where we would go to actually see the budget and the producer's actual kind of on screen. This is also the other place when I skipped those particular unassigned amounts that we would be able to see those values again and assign them. This grid has kind of a lot of options available to how you want to see the costs in these particular projects. So we have things like exclude empty accounts. So when there's 0 budget, producer actual, or cost, we don't display them here, so that saves time on looking through the reports. Show committed costs. If you're not using purchase orders, you're not creating purchase orders ahead of time, things like that, we generally wouldn't, you probably wouldn't need to view that option as well. But we do have a lot of options here, and I won't talk about every single one of them, but there's a lot here that you can do to allow for you to kind of run your project worksheets the way you're used to seeing your reports. So this is asking me again, do I want to allocate those costs? I'm going to click no for right now because I want to show you guys some of the ways that we can add those costs outside of that particular grid. So you can see here, I now have actual costs. So again, I had some transactions that I had created prior to this demo, and then I just posted a few too. We've got our budget amount that I imported prior to the demo, as well as our producer actual amount, which I just did there at the beginning. For example, for those particular costs that I didn't want to assign line numbers for at that moment, I can come in here and manually update this amount. So say there was $399, I can manually add that. If it's something where I have a fringe amount, but the handling fee is also coming in, and I want to actually add those two amounts together, I can do that as well. So if I just come here, I've got this $300, I can click plus 300, and it actually does that math for me as well. And then again, in the case of you're using a budget, or you have a freelance team that's using an unlicensed version of Hot Budget or something like that, and you need to manually create these amounts in here, you can go ahead and do that in this grid as well. So I'll just click save to save those changes that I made. And then I want to show you guys also the drill down that we can do in here. So if I click here to expand, for example, my petty cash advance that I did, I can click on an actual cost box and click to drill down. So from here, you can see all of the costs that are available here and making up that sum of the actual costs showing on this grid. I can click to view, and that actually opens a new browser tab. So that's one of the things in the application that we do in a few places so that you don't lose track of the work that you're doing at this moment. So if I click view, or I can even use shortcuts like right click, open in a new tab, I can save the work that I'm doing over here and come here and actually view transactions in this tab as well. If I make changes to this tab, to this transaction for whatever reason, when I come back to this grid, I would need to refresh my grid. But if I don't make changes, if I just say, oh yeah, this makes total sense, I have $9,000 advance in my petty cash line, okay, great. I'm going to come back here and continue to do my work on this tab as well. One thing that this grid can show us kind of more of a detailed look at the costs for each particular project. One of the things that we've implemented recently is a project profit report. And this allows us to see multiple projects at once, and again, in that worksheet format. So it's all on screen for us. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to just select a few of the columns that I want to see, mostly related to accounting costs. And I'm going to show my total income and my gross profit. And I'm going to add those columns to be able to see all of my projects. I could fill in a date range or specific projects. And again, this is where those values from our project setup come from. The directors, executive producers, things like that. I could filter these results down by that. I'm just going to group it by director for right now and run to show you guys just what it looks like on screen to have all of those particular costs showing at once. Now this is running all of our projects that we have right now, and it's giving us the details for these particular projects. And I grouped it by director. Looks like I've only assigned one director so far across the application, but we do have all of our total income, our total accounting costs, and our gross profit all here showing in one place. If we did want to go in and look at any of these particular, what's making up these total accounting costs, we could navigate back to that worksheet grid. But this is a place that we can get a good sense of what's happening, especially if you're doing, director profit shares or sales rep commission, things like that. They can all be seen in this grid. And then of course you could always print to Excel. And I did kind of skip that on the project cost worksheet. We do have a project cost report and that you can run from that worksheet or as a separate navigation if you want. One thing that we did that we did improve since the last time we looked at the system is we've added functionality surrounding credit card handling. So if I come in here, we've recently added the ability to mark an AP transaction paid by credit card. Now, what that does is basically allow you to track AP transactions that are paid by credit card. So you can have AP transactions that age properly in case you are waiting to pay something by a credit card later, or you can actually run reports on vendors that show you a full history for vendors that are paid sometimes or always by credit card. So I could come in here. The banks that are going to be available to me here are credit card vendors. I could record this as just an AP that's unpaid, and later I can use our credit card payment process to process this payment. Or I could record this the way I would record like a manual check and fill in a payment number and a payment date and have that payment already recorded. So we've added this functionality as well as a corresponding functionality to actually import that credit card statement. And the sort of missing piece that we are still finishing up right now is the reconciliation piece. So we still are, my engineers delivered this to me over the course of about 6 weeks, these past 6 weeks. So next coming up is that reconciliation piece, but the final piece that is currently available is the import. So as you can see, I've got an import type, which sort of lends itself to let you guys know that we do have, we do intend to enhance this import so that we can import other types of transactions. For right now, we've got a credit card statement. I can select my credit card vendor, and then I have kind of like a file type. So right now we have a couple of different Amex options, just because those were what potential clients provided to us. So we're building those because we had the documentation for it. And then the system allows me to either create a credit card transaction, which is one credit card transaction per card holder per statement. So if I have 10 card holders, it'll create for me 10 credit card transactions where each line, each distribution line in that credit card transaction is one charge. Or I can actually ask it to create accounts payable transactions, and that's going to be one AP transaction per charge. So that goes back to the usability of being able to actually track what you're paying a vendor through a vendor history report with those transactions displaying. Sorry, I'm just going to drag and drop this and click submit. And so these transactions are going to create just like we saw with the purchase order log. So you can see I have one vendor or one transaction per charge. I have my payment date came from my statement, my credit card, pay by credit card, my bank came from that vendor I selected. I don't happen to have a Starbucks vendor in my application yet, so I could just click to create Starbucks and save that vendor. Put in my invoice number. No, I don't know what it might be, but let's say Amex on July 22nd. And then I could fill in my coding. So if I know that that was from a particular project, I could put that in here. Or if, say, it was a credit card that I had for overhead expenses, I could use a corporate account. So put in my meals and entertainment line. The way all of our transaction entry grids work is that I can access my projects and their corresponding COAs, or I can do my corporate chart of accounts. I can do both in one transaction. I can do them separately. However you want to handle that, it can be done in the application. So I'll put in a payment number, which I'll just use that same one here, and then click save. And then I can, so this is in that draft status, and then I can post that transaction. It'll be a paid AP transaction paid by credit card. The one more thing that we have implemented as it relates to the project profit, we have sort of one of the first things we initially built was a profit and loss statement for the corporate side. We had a couple of potential clients say that they were interested in a project profit and loss statement. So we implemented that as well. And it's just kind of a toggle here between the corporate P&L and the project P&L. And if I click to run that report, you just get a summary of the income, costs, and then calculations based on those costs. So we have that available. And again, opening in a new tab, we do like to utilize the ability to continue working within the system where you are, but also navigate a way to do, small tasks or big tasks while you're still, without losing in the work that you're doing at that moment. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is payroll. And this is where I usually end, and I'm looking at the clock going, I didn't take 35 minutes. So hopefully you guys are going to have lots of questions. But so payroll is the next piece that I want to talk about. And the way that it works, as Revolution is a payroll company, the invoices that you pay or that you process through the payroll side come over as unposted transactions in the accounting system. So right now, this is just kind of a sample transaction. This is sort of our most detailed version. You can see here we've got an earnings line as well as all of our fringes and handling fees broken out. We have again, an enhancement coming to be able to properly handle how we consolidate those costs. But this is kind of the most detailed version that you could get. I imagine that most end users want something a little bit more consolidated so that it doesn't take up so many lines on their project reports as well as their GL and things like that. But just as a sample. So basically this would come in with details about each of the pay types as well as the employee names. And then you can post this transaction. So I'll just go ahead and post this, and you can see I have this create AP button that becomes available to me at that point. So I would click create AP, and that would generate the AP transaction to basically pay that payroll invoice. So when I clicked create AP, I got all the details for that particular AP transaction dropped into my transaction here. So I can see that this has been created. I no longer have the create AP button available to me, but I'm going to use one of my other tabs really quickly just to come over and find that AP transaction that was created. So if I am, depending obviously on the terms and how you're handling everything with processing payroll through Revolution on the payroll side, you may want to record this as an open AP that you're going to issue a check for, or possibly as a wire transfer if you've been debited that amount out of your account already. But either way, we have this passing through the payroll clearing account in your corporate GL. You can record the costs or record the payment for that with this AP. Kind of the goal of a lot of this, which maybe is clear and maybe is not, is we're trying to get the system to do as much for you as it can. So without posting costs that maybe you're not ready to recognize, we do have the ability to create transactions for you from imports, as well as kind of do some of the heavy manual work within the application. So that's kind of been a lot of our goal, to improve the usability of these systems while taking over some of the kind of stuff that takes time and is tedious, and try to get a lot of that done for us just with systems within the application. So Tina's going, you didn't talk long enough. I know it, I can tell. I swear in practice it took me way longer to talk about all of these things.
It's okay. I actually have a few questions. I'm not sure if you're done.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
I like questions.
First question is, what kind of security and safety measures are there for cyber attacks, since this is cloud-based? Is there a backup plan?
Oh, yes. This is a great question for our technology team that I am not a part of. I would I know that we have various sort of security compliances as a company because we do have, payroll data, which obviously has PII information, things like that. So as a company, we are compliant to a lot of security measures. And I don't want to say transfers, but it covers the cloud of this application as well. In terms of details of that, I sure don't want to speak out of turn. So Tina, if you can get that person's information, I can absolutely follow up with them about details on that, because I don't want to say we have something we don't.
Feel free to email me. Again, I'm going to send everyone an email with my information. Does Revolution work with cachet cards?
So we do have an integration on our production accounting side. So we basically have ProBooks kind of has two arms. One is the production accounting side, which we use more for features and single projects, and then it has the commercial production side, which is here, which houses multiple projects and things like that. So we do actually have an integration coming, I believe, before the end of the month, which was our first kind of version of this integration, that we'll be able to send data from cachet envelopes directly into petty cash transactions in ProBooks. That isn't available on the commercial side because we haven't heard of people really using P cards on the commercial side as much. If that could be outdated information. Mostly we see credit cards as well as petty cash. So if there is a need to get that cachet integration onto this application, it's fairly simple to do because we do already have that relationship with cachet as well as the integration piece built in other ones of our applications. So I can't show you that today, but it is something that we have available other places and can easily implement here if the need is there.
Next question, how do you attach a document to any transaction?
That is great. Files. This is available on any transaction, and then you just drag and drop a file here, and then it's attached to that transaction. It's available on all of our transactions, and I believe vendors as well. So yes, absolutely is a thing you can do, and then pull those up whenever you open that transaction again. It's through the same navigation, just files.
Can you upload a credit card statement for an American Express and Visa?
We can do American Express. We haven't received any Visa sample files from any potential clients. So if there is a client that's using a Visa card and wants to share that sample, what that statement file looks like, it's very simple to add that to the list of our credit card statement options for sure. But Amex, yes, already.
It's already in place. Okay. Once you pay a charge with credit card, but before you create an AP to pay the credit card company, does that transaction appear on the balance sheet?
If it's a posted AP transaction, yes. If you don't want to recognize those costs until that statement date, you can just create a credit card statement and not use the AP function. The system allows you to do either the AP and post that transaction. Once it's posted, it would hit your all of your financial records. And then if you don't want to recognize it until you pay the statement, or you don't want to recognize it until the statement end date, it would just be either a change in effective date, so that the effective date on the AP transaction isn't until that statement end date, or you could just handle it as one credit card statement transaction as opposed to using the AP separately. Either would work.
Can we upload journal entries with Excel templates for revenue adjustments, cost accruals, and other non-AP entries?
So currently we don't have the ability to upload journal entries, but we do have a really what I call smart paste. So all of our transaction entry grids have a paste option. So you can copy and paste from an Excel spreadsheet directly into our grids here. And the reason that I call it smart is because the system doesn't care what order the columns are in. As long as you have a column header that says, say, account and amount, description, things like that, you can paste them in here and the system will know where to put that data. So if you have account, in the third column over and the other person has amount in the third column over, it's not restrictive to where those values are. It just is a copy and paste. Once it recognizes those header values, it can then put the data in the correct fields, and then you basically validate that data, and it'll fill this grid for you, review the data, and post it. So it's not an import, but it is a really easy paste method. And as I said, we are planning to expand the use or enhance the use of that import function that we built for the credit card. And we can look at doing something like a journal entry, or I have plans for other types of files, but journal entry would be an easy one for sure.
What kind of budgets can you import?
So today we support True Budget, which is Revolutions, Hot Budget, and Point Zero. Those are the ones that we understand are used most often. In the last maybe month or so, I've heard of more people using Showbiz, so that's probably something that we would attack next. But it just wasn't, when we were initially building this, we weren't aware of its popularity. So we thought those kind of Excel-based budgeting solutions were the first ones that we needed to knock out.
Does your program have the ability to integrate with banks like City National Bank, so wires and ACH don't have to be inputted twice? Once in the bank system and once in the accounting program, we heard another program that can do this.
Yeah, so again, this is a thing that is today, no, but our production accounting application does. So our production accounting application has the ability to talk specifically with City National Bank at this point. So we can basically, I don't want to say borrow because we wouldn't give it back. We would take it and use it. The ability to have that integration with City National Bank. We did find when we were doing that integration on the other team that there was a lot of work on the bank side that needed to happen as well. So we are getting a better sense of the length of time that takes in terms of testing and getting things, I can't come up with the word right now, but getting things set up on the bank side with client accounts and so forth. But it is absolutely doable, and we've done a lot of that legwork already.
Is it possible to get reports and include unposted transactions in the report if you want?
Yes, it depends on the report. Today, I know for sure that we have the ability to do it with our project cost worksheets. I think we have the ability to do it in our general ledger. Nope, that means I've already written the ticket for it to include it at a later time. But yes, we are aware of the need to include unposted, and the idea being that would be in sort of either a different font or different style of font so that you could easily identify which transactions are unposted and which ones are posted without, going, my reports are out of balance and not understanding why. So yeah.
If we were to move from one payroll company over to Revolution to use the program, what can come over? What can they bring over currently?
Like if they were changing accounting solutions? That's a big question. A few of the people that we've spoken to have said they would be looking for basically opening balances journal entries. So just being able to say, okay, as of Jan 1 or as day 1 of our fiscal year, we would need balances in our accounts of X, Y, and Z, right? That's easy. We can easily handle that. We do have we understand that it's likely folks will want to bring over some amount of transactional data, and whether that's a year or 7 or somewhere in between. We don't know yet, but the idea is that using that import function, we would be able to take what I would call a GL dump or a transactional details from something like an Excel out of a different accounting system and import all of those transactions to cover that time period. That is not tested because we just don't have the data in our hands to be able to know if that will be a success. So I hesitate to offer something like 7 years of transactional data just because it hasn't been tested yet. But if we have folks that are interested in it, we could easily partner with them to make that happen.
Can you upload the bank statement and have it reconcile the items automatically?
No, but we know this is a need, and this is something that we are, again, another piece that is part of the reconciliation that we're doing with the credit card statement. We're going to leverage that to be able to do that with the credit card statement as well. I'm sorry, the bank statement as well, to be able to automatically reconcile those transactions. Again, we do, I don't want to say we need a partner, but we do sort of need the latest version of the bank statement file in order to make that happen. So again, a lot of what I hear is that City National Bank is still basically God in the commercial world. Most folks bank with them. So if we have a sample file from them, we're even better off to be able to build those integrations, even if they're not, even if they are a manual download and then an upload, it's still better than manually checking off some number of transactions. But yeah, that is something that is a known thing. We know we need that. Absolutely.
Do you have 1099 reporting functions? Example, mark certain vendors for 1099 and run a report for all the transactions paid. It would be nice to show the VAT amounts too.
Yeah, we do have 1099, the ability to mark lines in transactions 1099. It does start in the payroll vendor record. So we do have 1099 availability here, and it defaults based on the vendor that you've selected. So I can fill in if I say I have a partnership, it asks me for the tax code, and then, oh, I don't have any right now. Then you would fill in that 1099-1, 1099 NEC, depending on the value that you expect to use most for that particular vendor. Then once you're entering that transaction, it would automatically fill for you. So say you have a vendor where you've reimbursed them, but you also have some 1099 NEC, it would fill in there, and you would just want to make sure you take that value out for the reimbursement piece and have it there for the payment piece. And then we do have the ability to run reports on those 1099, the distribution lines that are flagged as 1099. In terms of the VAT, we don't have a separate way to track VAT amounts today. And in fact, I would probably want to speak further with you about what the expectations were of that particular piece, if they're all coded separately or if they are partially applied on particular distribution lines. I'm just not as familiar with how that works in terms of reporting outside of the US.
That's actually all the questions. See, 45 minutes.
That was good. Ooh, see, we needed all that question time.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you all joining us. Yeah, thank you. We had fun, so I hope you guys did too.
Me and Tina always have fun.
Again, I'll send you an email with our information if you have one-on-one